I'm Denise Blake, and I'd like to thank Sean Beattie for this, the last conversation in the series, Childhood in Inishowen, going to boarding school in Derry, and then teaching in Derry, teaching in Carndonagh, career guidance for students and for parents, family stories, family histories, so much local history. So very interesting. Thank you very much, Sean.
So where are you now? Where are you?
I'm in my own house in Kildare, actually, and that picture at the back puzzles people because say what's that at the back? And it's actually my son's an artist, and he took a massive big photograph, and it's a steel photograph on steel.
Fabulous.
And
Yeah, I was going to ask. It's fabulous.
yeah, it's actually in front of he's standing in front of the old art college in Belfast that was demolished. So
And he's a photographer, is he, or?
He's a digital artist. He's just digital all the time. You know, he's photography will be included.
Yeah, fabulous.
That was an exhibition in Derry, and then they were going to throw it out, and I just picked it up on a bit of space here in the room, so I stuck it up. So
yeah, that's gorgeous. It's very striking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a striking picture. It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it gives you a funny impression when you're. I've been on other Zoom meetings, and some people tell me, "What? Where are you? What's that there?" You think you're going way out the back. You know?
Did he get creativity from you?
Well, I don't know. Don't know. He's more into art and design, you know, rather than literary stuff, you know.
Yeah. So I suppose you mentioned that you went to Derry. Were you boarding school or in secondary school or?
Well, I grew up in Carmina, and it was a typical sort of a Victorian type of village, you know, with a forge and a couple of shops and that type of thing. And then I was sent off then to St. Colum's College by my parents. And to this day, I'm still trying to figure out why they sent me because there was no tradition of anybody going. And actually, anyone from the school went to second level. And yeah, I went to St. Colum's as a boarder. And the only interesting about that thing about my time, sorry, I've lost you there.
You've lost me?
Oh, no, sorry, you've gone off the screen. Go back on again. I clicked something.
Oh.
No, you're back on again.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only thing, the only people who are remembered for being at St. Colum's are people like Seamus Heaney, people like that. And I actually, he was a few years ahead of me at St. Colum's, but for an entire year, I sat just about 2 feet away from him.
Gosh.
In St. Colum's.
Yeah.
And his brother was in my English class, my brother Pat, and actually I was at Heaney's funeral, and I met Pat at the funeral again after all those years. But consequently, I've always been very interested in Heaney's poetry and Heaney's writings and so on. So he wasn't a poet at that time. Like nobody knew anything about him. And even when he went to Queen's, he began to make his name at Queen's, but only in a local scene, you know.
Yeah.
Took him quite a while to get established.
Yeah.
But it was after that then
that he took off. Yeah.
Phil Coulter was there as well, and Phil Coulter came on the scene because the music teacher John Maltseed used to get him to play the organ at benediction Sunday night. So that was his. So I kind of spotted him early, and but then he was in the. I had a Pirates of Penzance on, Gilbert and Sullivan Opera, and I was in the Gilbert and Sullivan Opera as well. And Coulter didn't have a lead part; he only had a very minor role of, I think it was a sergeant major or something. And I was only in the chorus now, so I can't complain. But then other people there, Eamon McCann was there as well, and he first came from. Well, I used to meet him at student debates that we used to have in the college. But there's a retreat, an annual retreat every year, and during one of the sermons, McCann was up in the gallery, and he interrupted the sermon. So from then on, then I knew who McCann was.
Oh, great!
Are they the only three famous people? They're the only three people went to St. Colum's. The rest of us didn't matter.
But funny, you say your parents sent you. how did you feel about going?
Well, strange enough, I felt comfortable about going, but I obviously, as a 12-year-old from a very rural background, and I didn't have the 11 plus. Everybody else had the 11 plus. Nearly everybody had it in the
Yeah.
north. And we were sort of I belonged to a kind of an unusual group of students, and that we came from Donegal, quite a few, maybe a dozen from Donegal, and we just had to try and fit in. So it was difficult at the time, but it was a good experience, and it had it was a great school to go to.
And it would have been home at Halloween and Christmas, I suppose. It wasn't every weekend.
It was very rigid lifestyle, and very religious. Like you went to mass every morning, and you're up at 7 o'clock, and you washed yourself in cold water, and you had sports at the weekend, and which I never took to, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I was 5 years there, and the only place ever I stood in was in goals. Nothing else for me to do. But I never took to Gaelic football as a result. But it was a Donegal group there, and we sort of stuck together, so we got through it okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was an unusual experience, very much of a city environment,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, funny I asked, because my husband went to boarding school in Kilkenny when he was 12 and was sent, but I think his mother was hoping he'd become a priest. That was
exactly. I was in the same boat.
Yeah.
In my case, it was slightly, the reason I think was because my father was in the Guards, and the Guards at that time, way back from 1922, with Owen O'Duffy was the commissioner, that a hugely religious ethos. That you really had to be really holy to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And, the Guards had this thing called a young priests fund, and apparently they paid something like 6 pence every week or every month into a fund to train young priests. And any Guard's son who became a priest would get free education.
Yeah.
And I know quite a few Guard sons who actually did that. In fact, I was talking to the curator in the Field Library in Armagh, which is the Austin Library, and I was saying to him, we should have a look sometime just to see how many Guard sons did actually take that up. It'd be interesting to find out.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. And then in St. Colum's, then you had very good languages department. You had Irish, and you had French, and you had Latin and Greek. But we were told in the beginning that if you wanted to, if you're even thinking of the priesthood, this is at 12 now, that you should do Greek. I mean, you have to do Latin anyhow.
Yeah.
Latin was just, you have to do that. And you should do Greek. And I didn't do Greek, I did French, and I'm glad I did. But I remember coming home to my mother and telling her, why I was doing French and not doing Greek, and she was really very annoyed. So she got the penny dropped then that I was going to join that church.
Greek.
Greek and Latin,
Yeah.
I did French and I enjoyed it, and as a result of that, I've been all over France, and I've been to university in France, and attended courses in France, and visited places in France. The most interesting trip we had was way back about 1970. There's a priest in Moville, and he decided to do a tour of the shrines of France.
Gotcha.
So we went all around some bizarre places in France. Yeah.
Lovely. Oh, wouldn't you give anything to do it now?
I would, yeah, exactly. I would, yeah.
I did Latin in the convent in Letterkenny, but the real reason for doing Latin was because you had to go up to the college to do it. So, and I failed Latin then.
It's a hard subject. It's a hard subject.
Yeah.
You do Irish. You go to Anafast as well, probably as part of the ritual, no?
Well, what Gidor? We went to Gidor.
Gidor, right?
Yeah. No, it was. I came from America, you see, when in seventh class at the time. And then for the first year or two, I couldn't do Irish, because if I failed my Irish, I would fail the whole Leaving Cert.
Yeah.
And then they changed that then, so.
Yeah.
So when you left St. Colum's, where did you go then?
Well, I went to UCD and did arts in UCD, and I qualified when I was 20, and that September I got a job in St. Joseph's Secondary School in Derry.
Oh yeah.
And,
that's in the Craigan.
Craigan.
Yeah.
I always think about it since, because at the age of 20, I had a full-time job. It was permanent, and I could stay in that job till I was 65.
Yeah. And as you say, you had a permanent job, but you didn't.
Well, the interesting thing about St. Joseph's in Craigan was it was actually the first Catholic secondary school in Derry, apart from St. Colum's.
Yeah.
St. Colum's was a grammar school. When we say secondary, it was called secondary modern, and it was basically for people who failed 11 plus. So as you know yourself, the North was divided between 11 plus and non-11 plus people. So to get to St. Colum's, you had to have 11 plus unless you were fee paying, as I was. But although all those who failed 11 plus then were sent to St. Joseph's, all the boys, and the girls went to St. Mary's. We had 700 boys, and they had 700 girls, approximately. And it was a very progressive school in terms of teaching methods, and they had a lot of resources. They're reasonably well funded. They had good gyms and outdoor activities, and very good art department. In fact, the art teacher there, who joined the same time as me, was a guy called Brian Ferrin, lives in Malin. And Brian left after 3 years and he became director of the Arts Council for Northern Ireland. So, we had, I always think back to that period, there were great teachers there. But the guys that we were teaching had all failed 11 plus. And then they went down in stages, sort of, a near fail to fellows who hadn't hope at all, that kind of 10 classes like that. And the thing, the principal was great foresight, Uncle Willie John Malseed, because he had taught in Strabane, and he'd come to Derry, and he believed in giving them a second chance.
Yeah.
So where possible, there were classes for them to go on and to do GCE at that time, equivalent to the leaving.
Yeah.
And we had 2 or 3 classes like that, and I did enjoy teaching those classes because it gave them a second chance. And many of them then went on, many of those guys who originally had failed 11 plus and were thereby locked out of everything because they got a second chance, went on to become school principals and engineers and priests and all sorts of other occupations. Yeah. So it's something with the Northern system that I don't like, actually, although I like other aspects of it,
Yeah, I was in a primary school in the North doing a creative writing thing one time, and the teacher was talking about, the weekend I have to do prompts or tutoring, and I was kind of confused, and I said to her, "Are you tutoring secondary school pupils, which you would hear?" And she says, "No, 11 plus."
11, yeah.
So she was spending her weekend doing this, tutoring children, and I was so shocked.
Well, the thing about it is, they're talking about abolishing it. It has technically been abolished, but it's still going on. It's still going on.
Yeah.
Although St. Colum's now, still going on, but I wouldn't say about St. Colum's. It's now mixed. They have male and female, but they all have to have the 11 plus. Yeah.
So were you traveling from Donegal to Derry at that stage, or?
Traveled up and down. Yeah, I did. Yeah. And then after 6 or 7 years, the Troubles started. And I was there for the early stages of the Troubles, and my clearest memory is of the 5th of October 1968. I remember being at home, and we didn't have a TV at that time. I had to go and look at some neighbour's house, and that was the riot, the attack in the Waterside, civil rights march. That was the first outbreak of violence.
Yeah.
That was on a Saturday, and then I remember coming into the school on that Monday morning, October, and God, you could feel the anger in the school. Everybody was just so deflated, and from then on, it affected the school in all sorts of ways, because the kids at the school, they were the ones who were down, at William Street in the evening, throwing stones at soldiers.
Yeah.
And the funny part about it, well, not the funny part about it, the bizarre part about it was that, I would see fellows coming to class, and there's a parry match with them, and magazines from Europe, from other European magazines, well-known magazines. Parry Match was very famous magazines, you probably know, and the Guardian and the Times and all that. And the bizarre thing about it was, they were sitting in my class, and their photographs were in Parry Match.
Oh.
Because photographers were there picking them up. So it was a sort of a bizarre situation.
Yeah.
But then the whole thing, I left in about 1917. Of course, it was 72 then with Bloody Sunday. And I think it was 4 or 5 of the students from the school were killed in Bloody Sunday.
Seriously?
I remembered, and I very clearly remember, in fact, I remember very clearly the guys that I had in class. But it's very sad to think, these young people, that is the tragedy. That's sort of what I remember most about teaching in Craigan. All the lives and all the injuries, others who were killed as well and maimed and jailed and
just the recruiting nearly of them,
recruitment of them, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like as young students in their early teens, they're full of potential, very enthusiastic kids, great to work with. They had failed 11 plus, but they had good ability. They had potential to do other things, and many of them did. And but they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. If they'd been this side of the border, they'd still be alive, probably.
Yeah.
The terrible things about troubles, all the lives that have been destroyed.
Yeah. And we don't even realize. That time I was in St. Joseph's. I did a creative writing in St. Joseph's residency, and the young fellas, there had been something in Paris at the time.
What do you mean in the school, Craigan?
And yeah, in St. Joseph's, just a couple of years ago, I did a residency of poetry in St. Joseph's. And a few of the fellows said, I would love this, I would hate this, I would hate if there was terrorists in Derry, but they meant Islam, they meant the Paris bombings and that type of stuff,
Strangely, way back 20 years ago, I had to go back to do a bit of work in Craigan, and I went back to the school to teach for a day. And this is now, I think it's 40 years later. And I was teaching a class, and a group of fellows working in the corner, and they were working on a project. And I said, what are you guys working on? We're working on a project called Bloody Sunday. Never occurred to them that they were sitting in the same classrooms as the guys who were killed on Bloody Sunday. And they were just getting it off the TV, off the internet. They were getting it off the internet. They had no connection. They just weren't making it. It was something that was part of history, and it was like the First World War,
Yeah.
Far away as far as they were concerned. It meant nothing. It didn't have any personal connection. It was something very, very distant,
Yeah. So then you left Derry then?
Well, then I moved I did a H-dip in the higher diploma in education, which I always wanted to do. At that time you could teach without the H-dip, now you can't, the higher diploma in education. And I got it, I worked for a year in Ballyfermot, and then I came back then to teach in Carndonagh College. I was there then that's where I spent the rest of my time in Carndonagh. And the college was then, of course, it was just worlds apart from Derry. Like, there was only 100 pupils.
Yeah.
They were all very academic and very serious.
The college was new then, was it?
Well, the college had just new. It was only established a few years, and Bishop Farron had established it as a kind of a junior seminary. And there were 4 priests teaching in it, and it was in the Colgan Hall. And but it was worlds apart from Craigan, A, in terms of the ability of the students, B, in terms of their motivation of what they're looking for, but also in terms of resources. Like, in Craigan, this is a deprived area now of the north.
Yeah.
You had a storeroom, and you had piles and piles of books. You went and take a set of books, 30 books of different topics. So every class I had, I'd get a set of books and bring them in to teach that class. I didn't like them, I'd get a different set the next day and give them this type of thing.
Yeah.
And then in terms of resources, like their art department, science, everything else, sports, like the contrast was huge between north and south. Even though Derry was supposed to be the deprived area,
Yeah.
That's where I was in Carndonagh. It was just a Colgan Hall, really, and the library was just a shelf, whereas in Craigan they're proper. So that's always struck me, the difference in resources.
Yeah. And where would the students have gone before Carndonagh?
They would have gone boarding. Yeah, there've been very few. They've gone to St. Eunan's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone to St. Eunan's. Yeah, gone to St. Eunan's. You probably know quite a few people in Letterkenny. Well, no, you have Letterkenny, don't you?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people left would have gone up onto St. Eunan's, and a few into St. Colum's as well. So
yeah,
that's why so few went. But of course,
excuse me, Frank Galligan was.
He was on St. Eunan's.
St. Eunan's, yeah, and that, that there was a lot of violence.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, there was. Yeah. And then there was the tech, well, there was a tech in Cairn as well, the technical school in Cairn, Cairn Tech, and a lot of, that's quite a big school. Then in 1973, the community schools came in. That was a huge transformation in Irish education, setting up the community schools, following on from free education in 1968 and or 67, and the three schools in Cairn, the convent, which was a couple of hundred, and the college, which was 100, and the tech all joined together. We became a school of 800 into Cairn Community School in 1973. So I spent the rest of my time there, and I taught English and history, and didn't teach French. And then after a period of time, I changed career slightly. I did a course in Coleraine. I qualified as a guidance counsellor. So my last 20 years in Cairn were guidance and counselling, which is quite different.
And why did you choose to change career, or just?
Well, at that time, there was a huge demand for people for guidance counsellors. They were very scarce, and there were people coming to the school, and they wouldn't stay very long if they were from outside the area. And then parents wanted career guidance for their children, and then things were getting, applications, third level, getting more complex. Sort of expanding rapidly. But it was quite difficult at the time because in terms of the resources that people have now with the internet, you can just go on the internet and you can look up your courses and do tests, and you have much more resources now than you had. You have better services in colleges as well to advise students. So it was quite difficult in the beginning, but I enjoy doing it. I mean, I'm very much enjoy doing it.
Well, I mean, it could be life changing if you put someone on the right career path right away.
I always felt it was. And the thing that really alarmed me most of all was that, not alarmed me, but sort of worried me most of all was that when I meet parents and parents then I would discuss what the student wanted to do, they more or less say, well, whatever you think. And of course, whatever I thought was based on what I would think the student wanted. So it would be a discussion between me and the student. But I would also say to a student, make sure you talk about that to your parents when you get home. And I think most times they didn't bother. They didn't bother their heads. They were third level, and that was that. And if they want to go to third level, the only funny thing about it was that there were certain things parents never wanted, like unless a student was brilliant at art, if you told a student to go off to an art college, they didn't want to hear about that.
No.
Drama school.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, I'm not going to mention any names. But there was one student, not say male or female in particular, and the father, whom I knew very well, was always on to me and saying, "Look, for God's sake, don't let her do drama, whatever you do, So I tried my hardest, but the student wanted to do drama, and eventually, I think the student did a non-drama degree, put it that way. And but once the student then got the non-drama degree, the student then suddenly got involved in drama at a very high level, while gradually working their way up. And this person is now in a very prestigious position in this country in drama. So I always feel that whatever students want to do, if they want to do it, they really have a passion for it, they will do it and get around all the obstacles in their way. As you said earlier, it was the way in which very often people left the responsibility to me to help the student to get to a decision. That was, but at the same time, unless there was a vocational course they're doing, like medicine or veterinary, which is purely vocational, the way I looked at it was that you can do a broad degree, and then you can do a diploma, and you can go whatever angle you want to go to. For example, if you do an arts degree, well, there's so many opportunities and pathways and avenues. Like if there's a computing element in it, you could go into IT. If there's a drama element, you can do drama. If there's a language element, all that type of thing. I also found something else that I found as well, that was a lot of hostility against arts degrees, which people thought arts, oh, that's
Oh, yeah.
creativity, it's writing, it's drama, it's playing. That's the thing. No job. What job do you get out of that? You know,
Yeah.
just kind of thing. But
Definitely.
there
I did my Leaving Cert in '76, and I often think that there was very few girls that went to university unless it was occupational therapy or physiotherapy, or most went to teacher training to Carysford.
yeah.
But I don't think anyone just went to university and did an arts degree. It was, as you say.
If somebody said to you, what are you doing at university? And if they said, oh, I'm doing an arts degree, they would definitely say to them, what job are you going to get an arts degree? You know,
Yeah.
But if you went away and said, oh, I'm doing occupational therapy, I'm going to be a primary teacher, I'm going to be a nurse. Oh, right, that's great.
Very good, very good.
Loads of jobs, you know, good job there.
Before you get a husband.
Or good holidays or something like that, you know?
And funny, the different discussions I've had, immigration came up a lot from Inishowen.
Yeah. Well, the strange thing is, I suppose we should have talked more about immigration, but you know, when a student is 17, I think you don't want to think in terms of immigration.
No.
You know, and some will and some won't. You don't know at that stage.
Yeah.
Many will emigrate.
Yeah.
But preparing people for immigration was something we didn't do. That wasn't. And I could imagine, you know, that if I was talking about immigration to a student, that the parents would be concerned they're sort of leading them into an immigration path.
Yeah.
As far as I was concerned, all students are going to work in Ireland. That's the way I would look at it. But obviously, they weren't all going to get jobs in Ireland, you know, or they might go abroad for a period and then come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is true that of the various classes I had, you know, I wouldn't say that many of them around now because they've gone abroad, you know.
Yeah.
They're doing very well, of course. Doing very well.
Yeah, it's a different thing. It's more of a choice now.
Equally, immigration isn't as, you know, it isn't as disturbing as it used to be in the past, because like in my own case, two of my family are in London, and with Derry Airport being so convenient, you can get to London in 4 hours. So it isn't really something that worries me anymore, you know.
And you are very involved in the Historical Society. How did that happen?
Well, I did history at UCD, and I was always interested in the local history scene, and I joined the Historical Society all the way back in my 20s, and I've been a member ever since. And I'm currently editor of the Donegal Annual, the Society's magazine, which comes out every year. And in fact, just this week, I sent off the current edition to the printers. And the current edition is about St. Columkill.
Oh, yeah.
But there is a bit of tension because it's also the year of the signing of the Anglo-Irish Treaty of 1921, so I had to get that covered as well.
Oh, wow.
So we've quite a bit of Columkill and the treaty. But one of the things that happened this year was I discovered, one of the reasons why I like doing this job is because of things to discover. And this gentleman approached me with an archive of material from the volunteers in Carndonagh in 1921, diaries and letters and correspondence. And we've got an article out of that, but he's going to donate his material to a museum.
Oh,
that's a great discovery.
Yeah.
In fact, just 100 years ago, last month, there were 11 people arrested in Carndonagh, and there's a family called the Lanigans, and there were 3 brothers in the family. And you probably don't know Carndonagh, but just at the corner of the Diamond, there's a cafe called the Donna Cafe. The cafe, and Donna Cafe was the RIC station, and Lanigans, they live next door to the RIC station. And then so they went in that morning and they arrested 3 brothers in the house, and then they arrested a chap who was working down in McDonald's stores, and they arrested 3 other people in Carn. In fact, it was 11 altogether. Took them off. Well, basically, to make a long story short, they ended up in jail. for several months. But then in jail, then there was this guy, one of the Lanigans wrote a diary, and he had correspondence too with the 1916 leaders previous to that, because they were heavily involved in Sinn Féin. And it turned out to be a great source of information, about the period. So it's that type of thing that I find I enjoy about it.
Yeah. And it's not that far removed from us, grandparents, great grandparents. It's
Well, like in Cairn, like I'm talking to people whose parents were active in the volunteers,
Yeah.
And in the case of the person who gave me the archive, his mother worked in Lanigan's shop in Carndonagh, and that's how he got the material. Lanigan's, I remember the shop. I was never in it. I think it closed down by the 1970s, maybe the 1960s. And the strange thing is that it's beside the church, and Mrs. Lanigan, Susan Lanigan, the only daughter in the family, was very, very religious, and they donated all their money to the church, and they also gave the house, and they gave the house to the church for the purpose of making a walkway from the Diamond up to the church in Cairn.
Gosh.
The house now is demolished. You don't see it.
Yeah.
There's a plaque then on the wall at the Donagh Cafe thanking the Lanigans for this, So there's an interesting story of a family who were very, very deeply involved in the War of Independence, in the volunteers, in Sinn Féin, paid a big price for their involvement. And then they were a man in business, and they've all passed on, but in some ways their memory has always been there. I always feel something strange about the house disappearing, because it's almost as if the memory of the family had disappeared.
Yeah.
But somebody in Cairn did say, the Cairn Town Committee did decide to remember them by putting up a plaque, so at least they're remembered there,
Yeah. And I always think there's a very strong northern Inishowen connection, even within Donegal. Say we would be inclined to go south Donegal more than Inishowen direction.
I understand a strong connection with.
Well, just like even a lot from Inishowen would have worked in Derry and more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Derry Donegal connection is exactly. I can understand what you're saying. Like people living in Outer County. I mean, why would you go up to Inishowen unless you just want to see somebody?
Yeah.
So we would we were badly cut off, with partition, then go treated 1921. The partition actually cut us off from Derry completely. So that was a huge loss. And then what happened then was a lot of firms then relocated across the border. It's like Brexit, trying to get over Brexit. They came over the border and set up over the border. Some actually set up in Bridgend, and some of those sheds and buildings you see at Bridgend are the leftovers of businesses that transferred from Derry.
Yeah.
But also, I mentioned earlier about the oath. A lot of people as well wouldn't take the oath, which they had to take in 1921, and they left their jobs. Doctors left their jobs, got jobs in Donegal, left Derry. Teachers left their jobs in Derry. I know some of the families, and got jobs in Donegal. I know them as well. But also, now that there's a ferry between Moville and Greencastle, you've never been on that yet, have you?
No, I haven't been on it, but yeah.
No, it's not operating. It would be operating in the summertime, but that was more of an archer link for us. The Greencastle ferry, Greencastle link, Moville, crossed the Foyle there, to Coleraine. And in fact, when people in this part of Inishowen were selling textiles, they would or say wool, they would just put it on their backs, and they would head over the hills, and they'd get a ferry then across the Foyle, and they'd go to the market in Coleraine.
Gosh. Yeah.
Or even the markets in Derry. I mean, Letterkenny was a faraway place for them. It was business mentality in Inishowen. Then, of course, I mean, it goes back even further, because when the treaty was signed, 1921, people weren't sure what they would call Donegal. But they used to call it Donegal. Well, go back even further, the Local Government Act 1898, they called the new council Donegal County Council.
Mm.
For a long time, they were calling it a Tyrconnell and Inishowen County Council. Because if you said Tyrconnell, you meant the rest of
Donegal.
There's a book written there by it's going to be reprinted. An historian has written it way back a long number of years ago. William J. O'Doherty. He wrote a book and he called Inishowen and Tyrconnell was the name of the book. So for a long time, even the 1920s after partition, people talked about Tyrconnell was elsewhere, and Inishowen was separate. Then again, some people say, when people talk about Inishowen being left out of all sorts of things, you're probably used to hearing that. It's actually the size. Inishowen's quite a large place. It's actually the size of County Louth approximately. Quite large size, quite large. So it's very much a kind of self-contained unit,
So like from our early discussion, the boys that had to go to St. Eunan's or the girls that went to the convent in Letterkenny, it was a big leap for them. It was a big leap,
Yeah. Then of course we're also part of the diocese. Inishowen's part of the diocese of Derry.
Yeah.
So Bishop Farron was thinking about getting priests for the diocese. He saw Inishowen as a potential source, and that's why he put the college in Carndonagh. To get priests for the diocese of Derry. He was successful for a period, but he wouldn't be too successful now.
No. I have thought several times in this last year, I've thought very much of my grandmother or grandparents, things that would have happened to them in their lives that you realize the struggles they went through and then just how they got on with their lives, and I'm very conscious now that I didn't listen to their stories when it was happening.
Yeah.
And I wonder, is there anything that for you has come up in the last year that you've thought about historically or your own people?
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned that. Did you say you were born in America? Did you say?
Pardon?
You say you came from America?
Yeah. Born in Ohio. Yeah.
What part of America was it? What part of New York?
Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland, Ohio.
Yeah.
My grandparents, excuse me, my grandfather and a group of other people went to work in Brooklyn Bridge in 1983, just before it opened, or just earlier. And he worked in Brooklyn Bridge. And when he was there, he met my grandmother. Two of them married in 1883 in New Jersey. And actually, it's only this year I actually got their marriage certificate. We're married on the 6th of February, 1883. But I find it amazing that they actually came back, the two of them, and raised a family. Whereas others stayed over there. And in fact, 2 years ago, I was over in Brooklyn, and I met some of my relations over there. So that's American connection. There's a huge American connection in every family.
Yeah.
Very, very, very big connection.
Yeah.
So the question you asked me was,
in this past year with COVID, like, has it made you think of other times in our own history or in your family's history where there was struggle or difficulties that I just appreciate what my grandmother went through more now.
Yeah, but I am aware of difficulties of a similar kind with the TB. The TB disaster was terrible. It didn't affect my family, but yes, I do recall, as you say, at the present time with COVID and this pandemic, TB was a pandemic as well.
Yeah.
And there were 12,000 people dying in 1912 in Ireland, and it didn't hit my family, thanks be to God. But I know loads of families around here, and the members of the family spent 2 years in hospital.
Yeah.
Hoping to recover. And then Carndonagh was a TB hospital initially. So I am aware of that and making that contrast. And I just think that we're very, very lucky today that we do have a vaccine.
Yeah.
Which didn't come in for TB until the 1940s. I think it was 1950s before it came in. But in terms of difficulties in the past, in the case of my own family, you know, I'm acutely aware of the land struggle that, like, my my family owned land, and I'm acutely aware of the evictions, Carmine evictions, Somerville evictions, and the hassle they had trying to earn money, trying to earn a living, and trying to survive, and trying to hold on to the bits of land that they had. And but then not only that, obviously on the national landscape, but um, amongst themselves, then a crisis emerged because um, many of them, some of them came back from America.
Yeah.
When they came back, they tried to get a piece of the family farm, and that led to quite a bit of family dissension. So that's all gone out of the past, thanks to goodness.
Yeah.
I was talking 150 years ago. But I do think of those things as well in terms of looking back at the past, you know. So in some respects, well, the COVID epidemic is very bad. You know, it's a great relief to know that it's not as bad as it was in the 1920s, 100 years ago, and before that. And in terms of economic situation, you know, there is great government support, whereas in the past, you know, people really had nothing apart from the old age pension. And you know, lots of families I know of, you know, they just lived, you know, on a small income they get from selling turf, selling fruit potatoes, you know, selling fish. So the state is much more supportive nowadays, and that's good to see that.
Yeah.
So in those two areas, like I would say, life has changed a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy with that.
Yeah.
And while I do get very annoyed about things I've come across in the land war and the struggles people had to hold on to their land and land ownership, excuse me, and what they went through, and the evictions, and people being jailed, and the harassment, and all that, which has all been forgotten about. But I'm glad it's all in the past, and that we're in a better position now to deal with the kind of problems that we do have, and we're living in a sort of a healthy democracy. So I feel a lot better. And although the COVID situation is very, very bad, you know, I still think that in the context of the TB epidemic, they're on a different scale altogether. You know? So it is very tragic what is happening.
And with the TB, like I know from my own experience, it was the shame that was put on people was terrible.
Yeah.
And then it became this massive secret.
That's right, yeah.
You know, it's a terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah, there was a woman who used to go around, and she was called the TB nurse. I remember her. And if you saw the TB nurse calling at somebody's house, that was like a death sentence, because it meant that she was going to tell them that TB. You know, that was the way it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was this stigma attached to the disease, but then again, it was highly infectious. You see, it was dreadfully infectious.
Yeah.
But I know I knew lots of people growing up who spent 2 years in the hospital where it became normal, you know, and the cure was fresh air. That's why in the Carndon Hospital, I've seen plans, you know, for the 1920s, 1920s, where they're building a special wing for TB patients, and they more or less had the great balconies, and the patients would be wheeled out there, sit on the balconies and get the air.
Yeah.
You know, air was going to leave the earth better. Of course, it'd be frozen as well, but also wealthy people very often went to Switzerland.
Yeah.
The air was better
to
survive the. So.
And as it is now, we need to protect our air.
Yeah, exactly.
It is now, you know.
Yeah. So when I look back, and what I would learn from these things is that, you know, we're in a much better place nowadays.
Yeah.
And I'm just sort of very glad that society is more caring, and that some of the terrible crises that we had in the past have been resolved, even though we still have big ones to face, you know.
Yeah.
But you can feel more optimistic. You can feel more optimistic about the COVID situation.
Yeah.
I you know, I just got the injection last week.
Oh, did you?
So that's why I'm talking like that.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I think probably there will be further waves, unfortunately, because it's going to be hard to suppress, you know.
Yeah.
I think we just have to live with it and try and do our best and try and avoid it, you know.
Yeah.
Do our best. I hope.
Yeah. I should let you
Right.
go.
I hope we get
Thank
something.
you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Enjoy talking to you. Hope we get something out of that. And don't be afraid to
Yeah.
edit it as you feel you need to.
Thank you very much.